What's going on, people? So, got a box of shoes here real quick to talk about, give you some of my thoughts and all that stuff. You know how these reviews work, right? So we're gonna go ahead and jump on into some things here. This right here, this is the Asics Magic Speed 4 in Huddle Yellow and Metropolis. You know, I saw Metropolis from Asics a while ago, and it was on those denim gel light 3s. Maybe you saw that video, maybe you didn't, doesn't really matter. But either way, like, I guess that's where this comes in, like this gray on the side. But yeah, it kind of made me think about those and how I should probably break those out at some point because I feel like it's been a while. Anyways, let's try to keep this on track because this isn't a newer model or anything like that, you know. It's been around a little bit. It is new to me, right? So I will kind of get a lot of the details out there that I can, you know. But I also don't want this video to be super long because, you know, why? Anyway, so I think we'll start with the bottom. Yeah. Down there across the bottom, right? What you're looking at, that yellowish part or whatever, kind of like a mustard yellow or something. I don't know. But either way, that's going to be the Asics hybrid grip stuff. They put that on the bottoms of a lot of the shoes to give you some traction, which is a good thing. Since this is a running shoe, you do want traction down there. But the star of the show down there, or whatever, is the middle area, right? See that big black hole down there? Well, it's not a hole, but that big black plate? Yeah. This is one of those carbon plated shoes, right? So what you're looking at in there is like the carbon plate. So the reason for that is just to kind of give you some sort of like spring action type of thing, propelling you from one step to the next. Generally seems to work out pretty well from my experience. I'll talk about some of my other plated shoes in a little bit or whatever, but that's the thing that's going on down there, right? And you can kind of tell from like different angles or whatever, you catch it from the right angle, that it is kind of deep down in there, because when you see like the midsole, we'll move up here I guess now, you see how the midsole is built, right? So you have like an upper layer and a lower layer. You got the Flight Foam Blast Turbo. That is like their better version of the foam, right? As far as going better than the Blast Plus. So it's going to be lighter, it's going to be more responsive, you know, the normal things, right? So you got that happening. And the reason for that, the rest of the midsole is going to be the Flight Foam Blast Plus, right? Like you see on like the Kinsei, not the Kayanos and the Nimbuses, right? So it's fine, it's good. I got no complaints about it, but the reason for the turbo is just to kind of give you that extra little boost in the front of your foot when you're like springing out and going into these next steps and stuff, right? So it works out pretty well. But the thing is, between those two layers, that's where the carbon plate is going to be. So hopefully that makes some kind of sense or whatever. If it doesn't, you know, too bad, I guess. But anyway, so moving on to the inside here real quick. So you have the same sort of look, but the only difference being that down here on the front piece, it says internal carbon. So in case you were curious about it, yeah, it's really in there, even though you just saw it for yourself, whatever. So there's that, right? Now, one other thing real quick about this midsole before I go showing you other pictures and stuff, right? So statistically speaking, the midsole height and drop, you know, all that stuff from like the back to the front is actually like the same as the Nimbus 27, which is kind of crazy to me because this thing, the Nimbus 27, looks so bulky. Like it's one of those things that I'm just not a fan of. But this right here, they have the same height in the back and the front, the same 8mm drop, the same 10mm drop, I think it is. But either way, they have like the same height in the back, and like it's just crazy to me how different it can look just by like a slightly different design. Either way, so moving on past that, get you some other pictures in here real quick just so you can see these top-down style or whatever. Not a whole lot happening, right? It's a cool color, at least to me. That's why I bought it. But otherwise, it's a very basic look. You know, not a whole lot of flash and pizzazz in the upper, no fancy designs or anything like that. It's just out there just trying to get the job done, and I can totally appreciate something like that. But anyways, let's get a little bit closer real quick. This mesh here, it's your standard mesh, right? They say it's been upgraded over previous things, which makes sense, but I don't have those previous things to compare to. I just know that I like the way it turned out. On the side here, you got the Asics logos. It's going to be this sort of plasticky overlay type of thing. Very thin upper, right? And you can almost see right through there with like the mesh and stuff. So I'm a big fan of that because I do like light weighted things. As you move on to the back third or so of this here shoe, you got a little Magic Speed branding on the outside, right? So that's kind of cool. As far as the upper goes, I just really like the texture to this thing in the back here. I'm not I'm not gonna act like it's anything amazing. It's just one of those random little things that you just happen to like sometimes, you know? So that's what's going on the back piece, right? Otherwise, while you're back there, you might have noticed that the bottom heel area, right, it's kind of like got this sort of split thing going on. Not sure what's up with that. You know, it's a thing that I see on a lot of running shoes, but not all of them. So in case you were curious how that piece is going on, that's how that piece is going on. Let's jump back over to the front, talk about some laces and stuff, you know, the tongue area. So the laces themselves, right, nothing fancy about them, nothing at all. They're flat, they're plain, they're soft, right, they're the one color all the way throughout, very simple. So there's that. Behind that, the tongue wise, right, the tongue is going to be a lot like the Nova Blast in some ways, right, because it's like that thin sort of piece that they have going on. And then as you get to the very top of that, right, it's got that same sort of like indentation at the top, right, to kind of sit around your ankle. It's got the branding down the middle, right. That might be 3M. I forgot to check, so I'll have to do that later. But all in all, it just kind of makes me think of those, right? Also, one thing that I'll bring in here real quick. Weight-wise, these, this is according to the Asics webpage, right? These are right under, like high 8s, right under the 9-ounce mark, right? Whereas the Nova Blast 5 is 9 ounces. In hand, you can kind of tell the difference, right? But it's just nice to have something like very light like that, you know? You'd want that for like a speed shoe, and that's what this is. So just throwing that out there in case anybody was curious and actually listening to this whole thing. Either way, so past that, tongue-wise on the back end, it's going to feel and look a lot like what you would expect, you know, so very thin. Got some sort of weird material at the top there, but I think that's, if anything, going to stop it from, you know, kind of give it a little bit of friction to help hold it in place, perhaps. But either way, the tongue is also stitched down onto the inside, so if you look at that in there, right, so that's another thing that's going to help stop it from sliding around too much on you. So very cool to keep that locked in place. One less thing to worry about. While we're talking about the inside, I'll give you another shot or something in there. Nice, thin, very cool color. Like I said, nice and soft at the top. So if you wear low socks, you shouldn't have to worry about these like digging into the back of your ankle, which is often a thing that people ask, right? And so I think that's enough of that, except for the insole. We'll talk about that for a moment and move on. You got white with the Asics branding and some sort of gray. And you also have all these little holes in the midsole, right? I was gonna, or not in the midsole, the insole, excuse me. I was gonna try to take that out, get a good picture for you, because it kind of reminds me of the VaporMax 23, I guess, or the 22. I think it was the 23. Kind of reminds me of whatever the most recent VaporMax was, because you could shine some light and you could see through those. I don't think you can do that on these because, you know, it's a very thick midsole. But it's just kind of a cool look. Anyways, let's bring these guys in here real quick, talk about some comparisons and stuff. Then I'm going to knock out some personal thoughts, right? So this right here, this is the Glideride Max, right? Came out second half of 24. This is the Kinsei Max, Gel-Kinsei Max, because it does have gel in the back. I think these came out in like 23 at some point. I'm not exactly sure, I just know they're a little old at this point. They're both plated shoes, that's the reason I bring them up, right? So the thing is, this one is kind of built the same way, like the foam and then the, you know, the plate in the middle there. They're a different foam, they're a different plate material. This one was carbon. I forget what these two were, but they're both different, right? So it's all three are going to be different, right? This one right here, I'll throw this in here, like, this one is my favorite running shoe right now for like speed endeavors. So just in case anybody's curious, because sometimes that's the question that comes up. I just like the way that this one works out. I've done a full comparisons type of thing with these, talking about them compared to various other things. So a lot of the details are in that. But the only reason I'm really bringing these into the picture is, right, they're all plated shoes, but they're all made up of different materials for that plate, right? So these two gave me a very different feel, especially with like the different foams in here and all that and gels. So if you are looking at plated shoes, right, because you like how a plated shoe worked out for you, so you're like, well, maybe I'll like this one too. Maybe, sure, but just know that if they're made up of different things, there's a possibility that you will feel differently about them. So look at some of those details before you go and make that final decision, because sometimes these things can be a little bit pricey. These are all, I think these 180 for the Kinseis, 170 for the other two. So they're all kind of in the same ballpark as far as price goes, but they're not cheap either, you know what I'm saying? Either way, so I just bring that up in case anybody's thinking about getting some. So past that, personal thoughts, right? Let's go ahead and knock that thing out. Personally, I like these. I think, and I can only speak on the visual right now and like just what all's going into them, first impressions. I haven't run in these or anything yet. That'll come later. But either way, so I saw them. They sounded cool as far as like the tech going into there. Looking into it, I'm feeling pretty promising that these are going to work out well. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. The visual component though, like I like the way they're built. They're nice. They're streamlined. I like the fact that even though they sit as high as the Nimbuses, like they don't look like it. They don't have that obese look in the back. So that's very cool. The color, it's like a washed out highlighter yellow sort of thing. It's not the easiest thing to get pictures of all the time, right? Because it reflects so much light. But in hand, like I like them a lot. It's not a mind-blowing color, and if this one isn't for you, they got 5 to 6 others to choose from. So there's a handful of them out there, right? But just for me, just after getting these in hand and looking at them pretty closely, they're taking all the pictures and everything, I'm feeling like I'm going to be into these. They're checking all the right boxes as far as I'm concerned right now. They even remind me of certain things that I like. So that's also pretty reassuring as well. But I won't know for sure until, you know, the next week or two passes and I've got some miles in on these. But I'll probably do some sort of follow-up at some point. But just for right now, just know this. I bought these shoes and I'm happy with how it's playing out so far. So yay for that, right? It's feeling like I did not waste 100 and something number of dollars, right? 70, I guess. But either way, so moving on past that, I'll give you some sort of, what do you like, the on-feet thing, the sizing and all that stuff. Just know this. I'm not going to be able to get too deep into like how they actually feel as far as running because I haven't done that yet. This will be mostly just to show you what they look like and tell you some stuff that you could expect as far as the sizing, obviously. So let's do that. I bought these in a 9.5, right? I have a size 9.5 foot. I buy size 9.5 shoes. It's just the way that life works. And this time around, things are working out quite well, which is cool. They remind me very much of the Gel-Kinsei Max. You know, it's like a streamlined build, you know. You don't have a whole lot of width in here. So if that's a problem for you, I mean, that's kind of a thing with a lot of like speed type running shoes, you know, it's just normal. You don't have a whole lot of length either. Like, and I'm just saying as far as like extra room, like the Nimbuses and Kayanos and stuff like that. This is not that same way. So for me, it's working out just fine. I've got no complaints, given that these feel dimensions-wise the same as the Kinseis. I think that's going to work out quite well. The upper, super light, super breathable, big fan of it. You know, they said it was all re-engineered from the previous versions. I don't have those previous versions. I just know that these are on par with other things that I like, and that right there is good enough for me. Now, the midsole, that's where things kind of get a little weird. I said it with the Gel-Kinsei Max that I do not like walking in them or standing in them or whatever because you can feel that plate in there. Didn't have that issue with the Glideride Maxes. That's one thing they had going for them. But these right here, same as the Kinseis, right? You feel that plate in there when you're walking in these or just standing around. I was stopped and standing in these for a second while I was like doing whatever it was, and I could just feel this plate in there. I was like, I am not a fan of this. It works well for like propelling you from each step to the next, because that's what the plate's there for. So as a lot of people will say, like sometimes certain running shoes, you just got to keep them to running, right? They're not made for just walking around in, and this is one of those ones. So I bring that up just to let you know that if you put these on and you feel like they're not comfortable, that might be because you're not running, I guess. But that's a whole other thing that you probably already knew. I'm just saying some people may not really be thinking about all that stuff because they could be newer to these things, right? Gotta speak to all walks of life in these little videos from time to time. So otherwise, I feel like things are going to be pretty good. I'll get you some sort of follow-up at some point once I've actually run around in these. Like I said before, this part of the video sometimes is really just to show you what they look like on feet and give you a few things to think about, right? But the real deal will come later. So again, want to show you what they look like. I've showed you what they look like, so we're done here. From me to you, have a nice rest of your day or rest of your night, wherever you are. I'm actually done recording videos for today too, right? I gotta do the on feet stuff, but did the pictures yesterday, so yeah, that's all right. Later, people.